أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين السلام عليك يا جعفر ابن محمد الصادق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه.
Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. is regarded by many as the master of all jurisprudence and a colossus in the world of Islamic law. He is revered for his knowledge, wisdom, piety and humility. He is seen as the master of all the teachers of Islamic knowledge. For when you look at many of the great scholars in Islamic history, many of them were students of Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. His life affects each and every one of our lives. It affects the lives of every Muslim in the world today. Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad is also known as Sadiq. He was born on the 17th of Rabiul Awwal in the year 83 Hijrah in Medina. His birthday coincides with the birth anniversary of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. The title of Sadiq, which means truthful, was given to him originally by the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. was the oldest son of Imam Baqir a.s. His mother was Farwa, who was the most pious among the ladies of her time. She was from the descendants of Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr, who had grown up in the house of Imam Ali a.s. since his childhood. He had always been loyal to Imam Ali and was martyred during Imam Ali's government as his representative in Egypt.
Imam Sadiq a.s. was 11 years old when his grandfather Imam Sajjad a.s. was martyred. He grew up observing Imam Sajjad's prayers and efforts to guide the Muslims. Imam Sadiq a.s. had witnessed his grandfather Imam Sajjad a.s. narrating the supplications of Sahifa Sajjadiya to his father Imam Baqir a.s. for documentation. Imam Sadiq a.s. was brought up under the care of his father Imam Baqir a.s. He participated in Imam Baqir classes for early childhood. His intelligence and superior knowledge was well recognized among the students and companions of Imam Baqir a.s. There are historical records indicating the Imam's gifted ability in responding to questions about the Islamic sciences as well as other sciences including natural sciences, history and astronomy. Imam would challenge the established theories of his time with new theories, providing clear logical reasoning for them. One of the widest spread theories that he disproved was the sun and the moon rotate around the earth.
On many occasions, if you were to read books on fiqh today, you will hear people saying, this is the opinion of Abu Hanifa, this is the opinion of Malik bin Anas, this is the opinion of Imam Shafi, or this is the opinion of Imam Hanbal. And unfortunately, you hardly ever hear this is the opinion of Jafar Sadiq. From the time he passed away until today, a great disservice has been done to our Imam, as to the extent that the greatest works of Imam Jafar Sadiq knowledge have been written by non-Muslims rather than Muslims. If you were to look at the Islamic texts, for example, Imam al-Bukhari in his famous Sahih al-Bukhari, in over thousands of narrations within Sahih al-Bukhari, there's not one single narration from Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s.
It is an unfortunate reality that despite the fact the vast majority of the Shia literature which is available to us today is through Imam Sadiq a.s., yet we tend to know very little about him, to the extent that his students, they have a greater following and recognition today. 1/3 of the Muslim population follows Abu Hanifa, the Hanafi sect. Yet he asserts that Lawla Sanatan, Lahalakan Nu'man, if it wasn't for the 2 years that I studied under a Sadiq, I would have perished. And likewise, 1/4 of the Muslim population follows the Maliki sect, Malik ibn Anas. So that pretty much constitutes 60% of the Muslim population. And he says the following, he says, ما رأت عين ولا سمعت أذن ولا خطر على قلب بشر أفضل منه فضلا وعلما وعبادة وورعا, that no eyes has ever seen, no ear has ever heard, and no mind can ever visualize and imagine a person greater than As-Sadiq in terms of his knowledge, in terms of his piety, in terms of his virtue, and in terms of his generosity. Mansur Dawaniqi, the individual who killed Imam Sadiq a.s., called him a muhaddis. An individual who used to communicate with the angels called him the greatest instant of an example of Sabiq al-Khairat, an individual who is at the forefront of doing good deeds. Jabir ibn Hayyan, the man who is known as the early father of chemistry, who is accredited with developing alchemy into experimental sciences. He was somebody who utilized, the first to utilize some of the lab equipments and apparatus that we use today. Many of the chemical processes that we are acquainted with today, such as distillation, crystallization, and evaporation, and the use of citric acid, sulfur, and mercury, was first initiated with Jabir ibn Hayyan. There are many theses written upon him, even documentaries made upon him. Yet Jabir ibn Hayyan was somebody, whenever he used to start his lesson, he would say, my master As-Sadiq has taught me the following. So the teacher does not have the same recognition as the student. And
so therefore that you find in Islamic history there's been a great disservice to Imam Jafar Sadiq, where they have tried to cover up and overshadow his knowledge, and more fame has been given to his students. But why? Because they know if people found out that he was the teacher of so many scholars, then focus would be on the teacher instead of the students. There are great works of Imam Jafar Sadiq in Western literature. For example, Eaton Kohlberg has a fantastic work on Imam Jafar Sadiq that looks at the 400 disciples of Imam Jafar Sadiq and the works they produce. There is a PhD dissertation house at the University of Strasbourg in France, which has now been made into a book called Imam Jafar Sadiq, the great Muslim scientist and philosopher.
That I was reading Abu Hanifa, so the bulk of the Muslim population follows Abu Hanifa, in a book named Al-Wafi bil-Wafa'iyat. There he asserts the following. He says, ما رأيت أحدا أفقه من جعفر ibn Muhammad وكان يقول سلوني قبل أن تفقدوني. That I have not seen an individual who is more knowledgeable than As-Sadiq, who used to say, ask me before you lose me. A similar quote was quoted by his grandfather Imam Ali a.s, meaning, ask me anything, there is nothing that I am not aware of. And in another book, Tahzib al-Kamal fi Asma' al-Rajab, it is said that he met Mansur, the caliph of his time, and Mansur said the following to Abu Hanifa. He said, Ya Aba Hanifa, inna an-nas qad futinu bi Ja'far ibn Muhammad. O Abu Hanifa, know that people are being captivated, they are enthralled, they are being drawn towards, they are being mesmerized by the profound knowledge and immaculate etiquettes and the worship and devotion and piety of As-Sadiq. So what I want you to do is فَهَيَّ لَهُ مَسَائِلَكَ الصَّعَابِ, that prepare very complex and difficult questions for him which he is unable to answer, and thereby we can reduce his rising popularity. So he goes to say, فَهَيَّيْتُ لَهُ أَرْبَعِينَ مَسَلَةً, I prepared 40 questions, very difficult questions for him. And when it was decided that there was going to be a meeting, he came to the castle. He says, فَدَخَلْتُ عَلَيْهِ وَجَعْفَرْ جَالِسٌ عَلَى يَمِينِهِ. When I came to the castle, I saw that Mansur on his right side, Jafar As-Sadiq is sitting on his right hand side. فلما بصرت بهما دخلني لجعفر من الهيبة ما لم يدخل لأبي جعفر. When I entered and my eyes fell upon As-Sadiq, his awe and aura took me back. It emanated from his presence, which did not exude by the caliph of the time. Mansur al-Dawaniqi, he was sitting on his throne, but he did not have the aura, is completely non-existent, which I could sense from the presence of As-Sadiq. So he says, I began to ask the question which I had prepared for As-Sadiq. وَكَانَ يَقُولُ فِي الْمَسْلَةِ. For every question that I asked, he responded the following. He said, أَنْتُمْ تَقُولُونَ فِيهَا كَذَا وَكَذَا وَأَهْلُ الْمَدِينَةِ يَقُولُونَ كَذَا وَكَذَا وَنَحْنُ نَقُولُ كَذَا وَكَذَا. For every question he would say that you have the following view, and the scholars of Medina have the following view, and we have the following view. So he would give his reasonings for every single one of them. He was acquainted and aware with every single views that were existent on a particular topic. We don't know of anybody even in this day and age who knows about the views of every single person pertaining to a single topic, and Imam Sadiq knew that. And as per the principle of Abu Hanifa, who says that alaysa qad rawayna anna a'lamu an-nas a'lamuhum bi ikhtilaf an-nas, that the person, an individual who is worthy of being followed, is the individual who is aware of all the varying views which are existent of his time. So he himself asserts that Imam Sadiq a.s. was well aware of that, yet he did not follow. What I wanted to say by mentioning is that we need to be acquainted with all of these literature so that we can unveil the sublime stature and status that Imam Sadiq a.s. has, which has not been unveiled to the world. And if we were to unveil it, naturally people will be drawn towards Imam Sadiq a.s.
Imam Jafar Sadiq took full control of the Islamic university that his father, Imam Baqir a.s., had established in Medina. The Imam brought this university to the height of its prosperity by training thousands of students. In this university, the Imam emphasised to his students to document their teachings. The names of around 4,000 of the Imam's students who have narrated his teachings have been recorded in the history. Each one of them have recorded many narrations from the Imam and spread them amongst the Muslims all over the Islamic world. As a result, the Imam became very well known among the Muslims, and many referred to him to benefit from his knowledge. Imam Baqir a.s. had asked to sit at the Mosque of the Prophet in Medina to answer questions regarding the Islamic laws. Aban alone recorded 30,000 narrations from Imam Sadiq a.s. Muhammad ibn Muslim was another scholar who recorded 16,000 narrations from the Imam and was known as one of the most knowledgeable scholars.
One companion who is very famous and notable of Imam ﷺ is Aban ibn Taghlib, and we have many narrations from Aban, and he's considered one of the most reliable narrators from Imam Sadiq a.s. He used to issue rulings in Kufa. Imam ﷺ commanded him, ordered him, said that I want you to issue rulings, mention our hadith and mention rulings on Masail. Then we have another companion who is a companion of our 4th, 5th and 6th holy Imams, from Imam Sajjad, Imam Baqir and Imam Sadiq a.s. Who is he? His name is Thabit ibn Dinar, and he's famous by his kunya, which is Abu Hamza al-Thumali. And is famous because Imam Zain al-Abidin a.s. taught him a dua, and he preached that dua. He used to recite that dua in the holy month of Ramadan, and therefore the dua became associated with Abu Hamza. So one of the longest du'as to recite in the holy month of Ramadan. Regarding him, Imam Sadiq a.s. says, Huwa Salman fi zamanihi. He is the Salman of his time. It's sufficient to know his status, to know his station, to know his position, that Imam Sadiq a.s. says, Huwa Salman fi zamanihi. He is the Salman of his time. Now, one more companion of our Imam ﷺ, who is an amazing companion, he is Muhammad ibn Muslim, and from him we have many narrations as well, and it's mentioned that Muhammad ibn Muslim was a companion of Imam Sadiq a.s. who Imam a.s. considered very reliable. Why? Because he had memorized thousands of narrations from Imam a.s. One day, he used to live in Kufa. One day, the judge of Kufa, Ibn Abi Layla, rejected the testimony of Muhammad ibn Muslim. Imam Sadiq a.s. asked one of his companions, he said that I heard that the judge of Kufa rejected the testimony of Muhammad ibn Muslim. So this companion says, yes, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, this is the case. Imam says, go to the judge of Kufa and ask him these 3 questions and tell him that in each of these 3 questions, he is not allowed to mention his own opinion. He's not allowed to mention qiyas. He's not allowed to say that our people or our ashab say this. He has to bring either an ayat of Quran or a hadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to prove these 3 or answer these 3 questions. What are those questions? Number 1, if a person gets a doubt in their first 2 rakat of prayer, what should they do? Number 2, if a person gets urine on their clothes, how should they make it clean? And number 3, when a person throws the stones at Jamarat, when they go for Hajj and they throw the stones at Jamarat, if one of the stones, you have to throw 7 stones at the pillar. If one of the stones did not hit the pillar, what is a person supposed to do? Imam says, when you go there and he's unable to answer the questions, then ask him, why did you reject the testimony of the one who knows the ahkam better than you and knows the sunnah of Rasulullah better than you? So he goes there, he says to Ibn Abi Layla that I have 3 questions, I want you to answer them, but they have to be from rawayat, not from qiyas and not from any of your people. He asks the first question regarding doubt in prayer. He says, our ashab, our people say. He says, we already said that you have to answer from hadith of the Prophet. He says, I don't have any answer from the hadith. Then he asks him about najasat on the clothes. Again he says, our ashab say this. Then he asks him about stoning at Jamarat, and again he replies, our ashab. When he's unable to answer, he says, I said to Ibn Abi Layla, why did you reject the testimony of the one who knows ahkam better than you and the sunnah of Rasulullah better than you? He says, who is that? He says, it's Muhammad ibn Muslim. And who told you this? He says, Jafar ibn Muhammad. Imam Sadiq a.s. told me that he's the one who knows the religion, the sunnah and the ahkam better than you. How could you reject his testimony? When this happens, he called Muhammad ibn Muslim and accepted his testimony in that particular case. Now, at that time there were companions of Imam ﷺ who had good humor as well. And this is a very important point. Sometimes we think or we believe that religion is very serious and there's no room for humor. But there is room for humor, not just for humor, but it has to be halal humor. What is that humor? There was a companion of Imam ﷺ, who's famous with the title Mu'min al-Taq. In the books of Rawayat, he's mentioned as Mu'min al-Taq. So he used to have lots of debates with people from the other schools of thought. One day, one of the people from the other school of thought said to him that we heard that you believe in Raj'at, that people will come back to life before the Day of Judgment. So Mu'min al-Taq says, yes, I believe in Raj'at. So this person who didn't believe in Raj'at, he said to him that lend me 1,000 dinar, I will return it to you in Raj'at. Mu'min al-Taq immediately replies to him, I will lend it to you, but you have to guarantee me that when it comes to Raj'at and we are brought back to life again, you are going to be brought back to life as a human being and not as an animal. Then one day, Mu'min al-Taq and this person were passing through a marketplace and somebody was calling out that a child has been lost. If anybody has seen a child, please let me know. Mu'min al-Taq says to that person that I haven't seen a child got lost, but I know that there's an old man who's lost and he's walking next to me. He's lost the path, he's going in the wrong direction. If somebody can convince him to come in the right direction, then I would appreciate it. Then when Imam Sadiq a.s. passed away, this person came to Mu'min al-Taq and he said to him that your Imam has died. He said, your Imam has died. Mu'min al-Taq replied to him straight away, yes, my Imam has passed away, but your Imam is alive until waqt al-ma'loom. Why? Because Iblis had asked for life until waqt al-ma'loom.
The political climate of Imam Jafar ibn Muhammad Sadiq a.s. was such that it worked out in the favor of the Imam and the Shia. How? Bani Umayyah were reaching the end of their reign. Bani Abbas were coming into power. And hence the Imam a.s. saw both rulers rule over the Muslims. Both 5 rulers of Bani Umayyah, from Hisham ibn Abdul Malik to Marwan Himar, the last one. And after, he also saw 2 Khulafa of Bani Abbas. The first one Safah and the second one Mansur al-Dawaniqi, who was also the one who had the Imam poisoned in Medina. And so because there was this political struggle, a gridlock between both clans, Bani Umayyah the cursed clan, were reaching the end of their reign. Bani Abbas were coming to power in the sense that they were gaining power, and also they said that they are rising up in defense of Ahlul Bayt. It was a pretext, it was a deception. They had no intention of helping the Ahlul Bayt or taking revenge from the killers of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, but rather it was a way to gain popularity and to gain support from the people as well as the Shia, that we are rising up for Ahlul Bayt. Ahlul Bayt have been oppressed, their right has been taken from them, and they have usurped everything that belongs to Ahlul Bayt, and so we rise up for them. But this was just a deception. Bani Abbas, when they came into power, they were no better than Bani Umayyah. In fact, it is said that if Bani Umayyah killed Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which they did, and I'm Ahlul Bayt, Bani Abbas destroyed the shrines of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Mutawakkil Mal'un destroyed the haram of Imam Hussein alayhi salam numerous times. And this worked out in the favor. Why? Because they were both locked in a political power struggle, which meant that their attention was now diverted away from the Shia and Imams of the Ahlul Bayt, Imam Jafar Sadiq in specifically. Bani Umayyah were fearing the attacks from Bani Abbas, so they were busy trying to defend themselves, whereas Bani Abbas were busy trying to gain power, and also they said to the people that we are rising up for the sake of Ahlul Bayt. So again, they didn't bother the Imam. So this was the golden opportunity for Imam alayhi salam, for the Shia at large, that never before and never before Imam Jafar Sadiq and never after Imam Jafar Sadiq did such a golden opportunity exist. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala works in mysterious ways. Imam used this time wisely. While they were busy in their own power struggle, Imam alayhi salam began to teach the Hawza, the madrasa that was propagated, was established by Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, was in fact, its foundations were laid by Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam. Not only that, its foundations were laid by Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. But eventually it grew and grew, and then in the time of Imam Jafar Sadiq, it became established. And so people would come from Kufa, people would come from Basra, people would come from Mecca, people would come from Medina, that would come and utilize the teachings, utilize the knowledge of Imam Jafar Sadiq. And he used this time. He debated with the Christians, he debated with the Jews, he debated with the Qadariyah, he debated with the Ghullat, he debated with all of the different views that existed, schools of thoughts that existed of that time. He debated with the philosophers of Greece, the Greek philosophers, and he would put forward the viewpoint of the Ahlul Bayt. He debated with the different schools of thoughts within Islam. He taught Abu Hanifa, he taught Imam Malik ibn Anas, and then both of these Imams then went on to taught the other two Imams of the Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So Imam alayhi salam utilized this time to the benefit of the Shia. And so many students learnt under the Imam, all because of what? Because these two political clans were fighting one another. They were busy trying to gain power, and this presented the Imam with the most perfect opportunity. Many people rose up in the time, for example, Hazrat Zayd, who was Zayd ibn Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam, was the uncle of Imam Jafar Sadiq, who rose up against the Umayyads. And you have the killing of Nafsu Zakiyah by the Khulafa of the time, who's from the grandchildren of Imam Hassan al-Mushtaba alayhi salatu wasalam. These were all political situations that took place at that time. However, eventually, when they realized that Bani Abbas now has power, they have defeated the Umayyads, now their attention turned back to Imam Jafar Sadiq. So for some time, their attention was diverted away from Imam Jafar Sadiq. After they had gained power, they had defeated the last Khalifa of the Umayyads. Now the Abbasis, when they were in power, and by the way, Abbasis are related to Imam Jafar Sadiq. How? Because their lineage goes back to Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib. So they are cousins with the Imam. The Bani Abbas are cousins of the Imams. and it was them who then killed their imams, their own cousins who were the imams, because it was all, the greed for power and the greed to remain in charge of the public treasury, to the greed to have and control the funds of the Muslims, that they went as far as killing Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. They had him poisoned, Mansur al-Dawaniqi. Not only that, before they had him poisoned, when they gained power, they had the Imam summoned to Iraq on numerous occasions. The Imam was in Medina, they would call him to Iraq, they would keep him there, sometimes for years at a time, to keep him under surveillance. There were spies all around the Imam who would keep Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. under their supervision, under their surveillance, and would report back to the Khulafa. And finally, on the 25th of Shawwal, Imam a.s. left this dunya. He was martyred. He was given a poison that martyred him.
Who had plotted to murder Imam Jafar Sadiq a.s. as on several occasions finally ordered Muhammad ibn Sulaiman, his governor in Medina, to poison the Imam. Imam was poisoned using grapes, which caused him to become extremely ill and finally died. Imam's soul ascended on the 25th of Shawwal in 148 Hijrah at the age of 65 in Medina. Imam a.s.'s martyrdom filled the entire city of Medina with grief, and the people attended his funeral in crowds. Imam Musa Kazim a.s. took care of his father's funeral and buried him in the Baqi cemetery. Imam Sadiq a.s. buried next to the graves of his father Imam Baqir a.s., his grandfather Imam Sajjad a.s., and his great uncle Imam Hassan Mujtaba alayhi salam. Wa akhiru dawana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.